Hello, this is the Computator at thetater.net. Today we're going to be talking about basic web page construction. So we'll be talking about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and the parts they play in putting together a web page. As always, there's a link below for a written version of this content with links to additional resources. Okay, so for prerequisites, all you need to follow along is any text editor. I'm using VS Code. I do recommend it. It's a powerful tool for web programming, and you'll learn that there's a lot of shortcuts to make coding easier using VS Code. And then additionally, the only other thing you need is a browser. I use Google Chrome. I prefer Google Chrome because it's got a lot of good developer tools also. And as far as resources go, I highly recommend you check out www.w3schools.com. It's an excellent resource for HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and a lot of other programming languages and programming tools that you might use. Okay, so really what we're getting into today is what does what. So we've got HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The HTML for a web page is really the content. That's the words or images that are put together to provide the information to the user. CSS, or cascading style sheets, is there to kind of style or provide some sort of decoration or layout to the content. And then you've also got JavaScript, which adds functionality. Okay, so let's jump into our example. So we'll open up a terminal window, and we'll change directory into the directory that we're wanting to work in. So I've created a folder called Example, and I have already created one file in there. Let's open up in VS Code. If you've installed VS Code and you've installed the command line tools for VS Code, you can open up all the files within a folder by typing code period. Okay, it looks like it worked. So here we go. We've got my example folder, and I do have one file in there already called index.html. So what are we going to put inside of index.html? So one of the resources I talked about before was W3 Schools. If we go to w3schools.com and jump straight to their HTML tutorial, one of the first things we see is this basic structure of an HTML document. So we're going to copy that and paste it over here. I am going to adjust the formatting. Different people have different opinions on how things should be formatted. I'm of the opinion that anytime you change a kind of a level within the document, it should be tabbed over so it's easy to see what sits inside of what. Okay, so there we go. If you're not familiar with HTML, W3 Schools is a great resource to kind of step through all the different things that you can do with HTML, all the way different ways that you can kind of present content. In most cases, you'll see that we've got what's called tags, that there'll be an opening tag, which is like in this case, HTML, tells us it's the start of the HTML document, and then a closing tag, which is the same string of letters preceded by the slash to tell you that that closes out the tag. So HTML here, opening tag, closing tag. Here we've got a head, opening tag, closing tag, and then other tags also. So we've got this very basic HTML page put together. I'll go ahead and save that. And one of the tools that you can use in VS Code if you're using it, otherwise you can go back to your terminal window. But if you put Control tilde, which is the squiggly line next to your 1 key on a keyboard, it'll open up a terminal window. That terminal window, you'll already be in the current directory for the folder that the VS Code folder is looking at. So what we could do now that we're in the folder in the terminal window, we could say open index.html, and that will open the HTML file in whatever your default browser is. And I've got Chrome set up here to show it. So we can see on the right, this is the actual HTML document being presented. And on the left, this is just the HTML that we got from W3 Schools. So we can kind of look at these components a little bit. We've got this title up here, is page title. You can see that over here on the right. That's what shows up at the top of the tab. So we can change this. All right, if we save and then refresh over here, we should see, there we go now. Now it says an example. And we're going to step through some stuff just to demonstrate how this all works, how the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript all work together. So this is the first programming experience for a lot of people for just about any language is to create a hello world program. So we're going to do that. So we've got hello world. We can leave this paragraph element, that's fine. And we'll add some other stuff here. We'll create an ordered list, which is nothing but a list of items that are going to be numbered 1 through however many. We're creating 3, so they'll be numbered 1 through 3. And we'll say list item 1. And don't worry if you don't understand the syntax here. Anytime you need to do something you haven't done before, that you've forgotten how to do something, I recommend you go to some sort of resource, whether it's documentation for a programming language or W3 Schools for anything that's HTML, JavaScript, or CSS. Whatever you need to do to find out what the syntax is, I would recommend highly that you focus on concepts and not memorizing syntax. So we're going to create a couple list items. 2, item 3. Okay, so we'll see 3 list items there. Let's see what this looks like so far. Okay, so there's my item 1, item 2, and item 3. And let's see, outside of that, I think also we'll demonstrate creating a link. So link syntax is actually called an anchor tag. And we'll say HTTP, I think it's a S, www.w3schools.com. And we'll say W3 Schools. Let's see how that works. Okay, we should be able to click that link now. And that takes us to W3 Schools. Cool. So we go back. And the other thing I'd like to add here for demonstration is we're going to create a text box with a label on it. So first we write the label. And we'll say name. Then we'll create a text box, which is input type equals text. And again, I wouldn't worry too much about any kind of memorization on this stuff. Just understand that if you want to create an input or a text box, W3 Schools is a great place to look and figure out how to do that. And then in addition to that label, let's create a button. And it'll say, click me. There we go. All right, so let's see how that looks. All right, it looks pretty good. The only thing I want to change is that I want to put some a new line between this W3 Schools and the label for the text box. So all I have to do for that. And BR is the syntax there. See what that looks like. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, so that's what I wanted there. So now we've demonstrated just some basic HTML. We've got a H1 tag header. We've got just a paragraph. We've got an ordered list. We've got a link, text box, and a button. So now let's talk a little bit about CSS. First thing to bring up is in order to include our CSS in this HTML document, we need what's called a link tag. We're going to go ahead and look that up. This is one of those things that I can never quite remember exactly how to do. So W3 Schools link CSS. Let's try that out. There we go. All right, so here we go. Inside the head, we need to create our link. I'm just going to copy and paste here. It is a style sheet. The type will be text or CSS. And this reference, we can make this anything we want to. I'm going to go ahead and keep theme.css just because it makes sense. But if we wanted to name it something else, we could just make sure that they match, that the href matches whatever the actual file name is. Theme.css. Okay. So now what can we do with this CSS? Let's say I want to make this hello world, make it red. So what we'll do here, h1, because that's the type of tag it is, we'll say color red. All right, let's see if that worked. Save, refresh. It did not work. What did we do? We didn't save index.html. Let's try it again. There we go. Okay, so all we had to do was tell it that any h1 tags we want to be red, and it'll do that. So for example, here, if I want to make all of these list items, say orange, I could say li, for those list items, color orange. And if you look at W3 schools, you'll see that there's multiple different ways for you to represent a color. I like using these just noun names of colors. That makes it very easy. When you get into more detailed color schemes using colors other than your standard red, orange, yellow, green, blue colors, you can actually specify RGB values, a lot of different ways to do it. So you can do more research there on your own. Let's see if it works. There we go. My items 1, 2, and 3 are all orange. And another example of something that we can do, we've got a paragraph. All right, this paragraph. Let's say I wanted to make that text a little bigger. One way of doing that with CSS, we say, okay, my P paragraph tag. Let's make a font size. And there's a lot of different font size options. You can see the JS code is giving me some choices. I'm going to use what's called M. And what that is, M is the width of the M character in whatever the default font size is for what's being used here. So this font here, the width of the letter M, I'm making the font size 3 times as big. So save that, refresh, and there we go. That's 3 times as big as the width of the letter M. All right, so that's CSS. We can take a tag. Additionally, we could add class names and IDs, which we'll get into a little bit here in a second, but lots of different ways that you can style stuff and then also lay it out. So I do plan on doing some future videos on actually doing some more detail on styling. So next is JavaScript. So my HTML gave me the content, CSS gave me some styling, and now I want to actually make something do something. So like right now I've got this button that says click me. I can click it all I want, nothing happens, right? So to kind of demonstrate what we can do with JavaScript, we'll start out with some basic examples. If you're using Chrome, you can open developer tools at any time by hitting Option, Command, I on a Mac. If you didn't want to get there that way, there's also the option over here, Chrome. You've got a window, I think. Maybe not, View. There we go, View, Developer, and you can open the developer tools. Okay, so we've got our developer tools. If you go to the console, what this is it's just a place where you can type in JavaScript commands and they will execute. So JavaScript allows you to do basic math. You can say like 2 + 4, and it gives me 6. You can also do some like variable assignments. So we can say like let A equals 2, let B equals 4, and now we can say A plus B, right? And again, we get 6. That's not very useful though. What I want to do is actually change something within my HTML up above. One of the tools that JavaScript gives us is the ability to manipulate what's called the DOM, or the document object model. And all that really is the representation of the HTML that you're seeing on the page. So for an example here, we'll say document dot get element by ID. Excuse me, not by ID. Not sure we'll use ID. It makes things easy. So let's give an ID to something. So H1 here, say ID equals hello. Okay. Probably need to refresh here for that to work. Get element by ID, hello. Okay, and it returns this H1 element with an ID hello, hello world. So additionally, what I can do is say document.get element by ID hello, enter text, and I'm going to have it say hello Bob. So when I go ahead and hit enter on that, I've actually manipulated the document object model. Instead of saying hello world, it now says hello Bob. So that's cool, but I don't want to be typing down below in developer tools anytime I want to make changes to an HTML page. So I need to actually build it into a JavaScript file that my HTML page references so that the page can become interactive. So let's see, a way that I can do this. First thing we need to do is link to JavaScript. We tend to do that at the bottom of the body. That'll be explained later on why we do that, but we'll say script and source src equals, and we'll call it script.javascript. Okay, and so now we're importing that script. We just need to create it. We'll say script.javascript. Okay, now anything I type in here will automatically have impact on the page. For example, if let's just copy this, the code I used before, save that. Now if I refresh, it says hello Bob without me having to do anything. If I comment out this line, meaning that this line isn't actually doing anything, now we can just read it, but the computer doesn't read it. I refresh, now it says hello world again. Uncomment, back to hello Bob. We'll get rid of that line. So what do I want to do? I want to be able to type a name into here, click the button, and have it say the name. So what I'm going to do for that, first thing we need to do is tell the button what to do when it's clicked. So on click equals, and we create a function name. We're going to call it button clicked. Okay, we'll save that. So now all we have to do is within the script, tell it what that means. So button clicked is a function. And what it does is we need it to get the name from this text field. So to make that easy, we'll give that text field a ID. We'll call it name. So we're using the same syntax we used before. Get element by ID name. When we look at a text field, we can pull the value. Okay, name is going to equal that value. And then let's see, we called the hello world line hello. The enter text equals, and I'm going to use what's called string interpolation here. You'll get plenty of opportunities to learn about that later, but what I'm doing is I'm kind of mixing JavaScript code with a string so that I can add my words wherever I want them. So hello name, and we'll keep the exclamation point at the end there. I think that does it. Let's check this out and see if it works. So I refresh, I type in Bob, click me, and there we go, hello Bob. Okay, so to recap what we went through here, we've got our HTML, which provides the content or the words. We've got our CSS, which provides the styling for the words on the page. And this is also what we would use to change the layout of the words on the page. And then we've got our JavaScript, which actually added some functionality. All right, so for an example, I can also say like, I don't know, Tom. Click me and hello, Tom. All right, so hopefully that was useful to you. If it was, please click the subscribe link below and keep coming back. Thank you.